Arkansas is one of the most landlord-friendly states in the country when it comes to late fees, consistent with the state's overall minimal approach to landlord-tenant regulation. As we've discussed in our other Arkansas videos, the state has not adopted a comprehensive version of the Uniform Residential Landlord and Tenant Act, and the landlord-tenant relationship is governed by a combination of Arkansas Code Title 18, Chapter 17, Common Law Principles, and the lease agreement. If you're dealing with late fees in Arkansas, the lease is your primary governing document because the statute provides virtually no guidance. Let's start with the basics. Arkansas does not have a specific statute that caps late fees. There is no percentage limit, no dollar cap, and no statutory formula. The fee amount is governed entirely by the lease terms and general contract principles. Arkansas also does not mandate a grace period. There is no state law requiring any specific number of days before a late fee can be charged. If your lease says rent is due on the 1st and a late fee applies on the 2nd, that's enforceable. However, most Arkansas landlords include a grace period of 3 to 5 days as standard practice. The key legal principle is reasonableness under Arkansas contract law. A late fee is a liquidated damages provision, and Arkansas courts apply the standard analysis. The damages must be difficult to calculate at the time of contracting, and the fee must be a reasonable estimate of anticipated damages. A fee that is clearly a penalty, grossly disproportionate to the landlord's actual costs, is unenforceable. Arkansas courts have addressed liquidated damages in various contract contexts, and the principles apply to residential late fees. The analysis focuses on whether the amount was reasonable at the time the lease was signed, considering the landlord's anticipated administrative costs, follow-up communication, bank fees, and the time value of money. A fee that reasonably corresponds to these costs is enforceable. A fee that dramatically exceeds them crosses into penalty territory. What's reasonable in Arkansas? The state has one of the most affordable rental markets in the country. Rents in Little Rock typically range from $700 to $1,200. Fayetteville and the Northwest Arkansas corridor are somewhat higher due to strong demand. Smaller communities are very affordable. A flat fee of $25 to $50 or a percentage-based fee of 5 to 10% of the monthly rent is generally defensible. Given Arkansas's lower rent levels, the dollar amounts are modest. A $50 fee on a $900 Little Rock rent is about 5.5%. Reasonable. A $100 fee on a $600 rent in a smaller community is nearly 17%, likely excessive. The lease must clearly state the late fee terms. Given the minimal statutory framework, the lease is essentially the only document governing late fees. The lease should specify the rent due date, any grace period, the exact fee amount or formula when the fee triggers, whether additional charges apply for continued non-payment, and whether the fee is defined as additional rent. Without clear lease language, enforcement is extremely difficult. Arkansas has a unique criminal dimension to its landlord-tenant law that interacts with late payment situations. Under Arkansas's failure to vacate statute, a tenant who remains in possession after receiving proper notice to vacate can face criminal penalties. While this criminal provision doesn't directly address late fees, it reflects the state's overall approach that strongly favors the landlord's property rights. However, landlords should be careful not to use the threat of criminal prosecution as a tool to pressure tenants into paying disputed late fees. That approach creates legal risk. Compounding late fees in Arkansas are governed by the lease and the reasonableness standard. A single one-time fee after the grace period is the simplest approach. If your lease includes daily or weekly charges, the total must remain reasonable. A compounding fee that could accumulate to 20% of the monthly rent within a few weeks would likely be challenged, even in landlord-friendly Arkansas. Most Arkansas landlords use a single flat fee. The interaction between late fees and the eviction process in Arkansas follows the state's unlawful detainer framework. Arkansas uses a relatively fast eviction process. The landlord provides notice, and if the tenant fails to pay or vacate, the landlord can file for eviction through the district court. The specific notice periods and procedures depend on the type of tenancy and the lease terms. Whether unpaid late fees can be included in the eviction demand depends on how the lease defines them. If defined as additional rent, they can be included. If treated as a separate charge, the landlord may need to pursue them independently. Best practice: define late fees as additional rent. Arkansas does not have a comprehensive statutory framework for security deposit returns comparable to most states. The deposit rules are governed primarily by the lease terms and common law, with limited statutory guidance under Arkansas Code Section 18-16-305. The landlord must return the deposit within 60 days and provide an itemized list of deductions. Unpaid late fees can be deducted if the lease authorizes it and the fees are reasonable. The Arkansas Deceptive Trade Practices Act, found in Arkansas Code Title IV, Chapter 88, prohibits unconscionable and deceptive business practices. While the Act primarily targets consumer sales, it can apply to residential rental practices in certain circumstances. Systematic overcharging of late fees, particularly combined with misleading lease terms, could be challenged under this framework. The Act provides for actual damages and attorney's fees. For tenants receiving Housing Choice Voucher assistance, Arkansas landlords should not charge late fees when the housing authority's portion is delayed due to processing. The tenant cannot control the authority's payment timeline. If the tenant's portion is paid on time, the fee should apply only when the tenant's own payment is actually late. Arkansas does not have a major active-duty military installation. However, the Little Rock Air Force Base near Jacksonville is home to the 19th Airlift Wing and generates military rental demand in the Jacksonville, Cabot, and North Little Rock corridor. Fort Chaffee near Fort Smith is primarily a National Guard training site. The Pine Bluff Arsenal generates some defense demand. The SCRA applies to any active-duty service member renting in Arkansas. Military pay is predictable, and most military tenants at Little Rock AFB pay reliably. The standard 3 to 5 day grace period accommodates any minor pay processing delays. From a practical standpoint, Arkansas's rental market is moderate to affordable, with one notable exception in the Northwest Arkansas corridor. Northwest Arkansas, Fayetteville, Springdale, Rogers, Bentonville has the strongest and most dynamic rental market in the state. The explosive growth driven by Walmart headquarters in Bentonville, Tyson Foods in Springdale, J.B. Hunt Transport in Lowell, and the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville has transformed the region. Rents in NWA have increased dramatically, commonly ranging from $1,000 to $1,600 in desirable areas. The NWA market attracts corporate employees, vendor representatives, university personnel, and increasingly remote workers drawn by the region's growth and quality of life. Late payment among this professional tenant base is uncommon. Most NWA landlords charge flat fees of $40 to $60 with a 5-day grace period. The Bentonville-Rogers corridor has particularly strong demand from Walmart corporate employees and the thousands of vendor representatives who maintain offices near the Walmart home office. These tenants are well-compensated professionals who pay reliably. Fayetteville's University of Arkansas creates student demand. Student late payments correlate with financial aid processing. The 5-day grace period covers most delays. Little Rock, the state capital and largest city, has a moderate market driven by state government, healthcare, including UAMs and multiple hospital systems, logistics, and financial services. Rents in Little Rock are affordable, typically $700 to $1,200. Most Little Rock landlords charge flat fees of $25 to $50 with a 5-day grace period. The Little Rock Metro, including North Little Rock, Conway, Benton, and Bryant, has varying dynamics. Conway, home to 3 universities including the University of Central Arkansas, has student-influenced demand. The western suburbs have attracted families and professionals. Jacksonville, adjacent to Little Rock AFB, has a military-influenced market with reliable tenants. Fort Smith has a moderate market influenced by manufacturing, healthcare, and UAFS. Hot Springs has a tourism-influenced market. Jonesboro, home to Arkansas State University, has a student-influenced market. Pine Bluff, Texarkana, and smaller Arkansas communities have affordable markets with limited demand. The Delta region of eastern Arkansas has the softest rental markets in the state. Population decline, limited economic opportunity, and very low incomes constrain demand. Landlords in the Delta should set late fees that reflect the local economic reality. Fees appropriate for NWA's booming market are unrealistic in a community where many residents live on fixed incomes. Arkansas's agricultural economy, rice, cotton, soybeans, poultry, influences late payment patterns in farming communities. The poultry processing industry concentrated in NWA and western Arkansas employs a large immigrant workforce that needs affordable housing. Landlords serving this demographic should set late fees that the community can realistically bear. One best practice for Arkansas landlords, because the state has essentially no statutory framework for late fees, your lease must be comprehensive. Include a detailed provision covering every element: due date, grace period, fee amount, trigger date, compounding rules, definition as additional rent, and how the fee interacts with the security deposit. In a state where the statute provides no guidance, every detail must be in the lease. Another best practice: calibrate your fee to the local market. Arkansas's extreme variation, from NWA's booming economy to the Delta's deep poverty, means a one-size-fits-all approach doesn't work. A percentage-based fee of 5 to 8% automatically scales. A flat fee should be adjusted by market. $50 may be reasonable in NWA, but disproportionate in a Delta community where rents are $300. A third best practice: apply your late fee consistently across all tenants, regardless of the minimal regulatory framework. Arkansas's light regulation doesn't exempt landlords from fair housing obligations. Selective enforcement, charging late fees to tenants of one race while waiving them for another, violates federal fair housing law. Consistent enforcement with documented records protects you. For the complete guide to Arkansas late fee laws, visit tenantscreeningbackgroundcheck.com. Subscribe to our channel for every state in our late fee law series.